Okay. That working okay? It seems quiet again. It's really annoying me. There we go. I thought tea was an afternoon and evening thing. Hi, Doctor. How you doing? I mean, it used to be. It used to be like, when they say tea, it would be like tea with scones or cakes and things and sandwiches. Um, that's kind of the traditional afternoon tea. It would be in between your lunch and your evening meal. Um, Funny enough, in the north of England, um, a lot of people, and myself included, grew up calling the meals breakfast, lunch, and tea. Yeah, there is less caffeine in tea. There's very few teas that have very high caffeine. There's still caffeine, but not as much. And this one I'm drinking actually is it's got enough caffeine that it takes the edge off any sort of coffee caffeine withdrawal, so I can actually not drink coffee for several days drinking this tea. It's pretty tasty. But yeah, in the north of England, we do refer to it as breakfast, lunch, and tea, or breakfast, dinner, and tea. Sorry, so dinner would be the lunchtime meal, and yeah, which confuses people. And then you go down to the south, and it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So dinner and tea. I've been drinking pop to get some lower caffeine sources. No, called it pop in the UK. I mean, I haven't. Yeah, pop. Can of pop. Or a bottle of pop. I've called it soda for that long now that I had to think about that. But yeah. Also, areas of the US, right? Minnesota, I think, calls it pop, and Boston. Oh dear. So vacation today, taking it money. Nice. Long weekend. That's good. Oh, nice. Um, Maybe you will. That's actually still a thought. So what I'm doing is I'm starting to put some more thought into the features that I actually want to build out and how I want to build them out. Now I've got some, how do I put it, meat on the bones, I suppose, or substance to what I'm building. Oh man. Every time I talk, it kind of the congestion starts. Makes me want to cough. Um, so now I've got some substance to what I'm building. I want to I'm starting to think about the actual intricacies of what it is I'm trying to achieve here, right? So I started building some more UI yesterday in Figma. So this is my Figma layout. I'm trying to build out I need to add the register part 3 there. So what I'm trying to kind of get a feel for here is what I want this actually to look like. Um, I'm not going to spend a great deal of time and energy over analyzing some of this stuff, although I'm not happy with the way it looks. I think the key features are that I'm laying out what I expect to see, how I expect to see things roughly, and then I could actually present this to someone who knows what they're doing with UI UX. That reminds me, I need to turn on the light. I was going to get artifacts around my head. Yeah, if I'm presenting this to someone like who knows what they're doing with UI UX, I know this is looking terrible. And I've been looking through Mobbin, trying to find some good examples of really what I'm trying to do, and I can't find any that kind of lay out what I want. I'm interested in rebuild the entire front end in that case. Yeah. It's why I'm focusing so much on the technology. I don't believe I'm going to get a perfect UI here first time, right? So I know that I'm going to have to do something with this later on. So what I'm doing is trying to look at things that do similar things, right? So if I go to here, the UI would be totally different. Could even use a different front end new tech. Not necessarily. I mean, I've got to build something, right? I've got to build something that's kind of functional, a first pass, right? So I want to try and refine that as much as I can, but I don't want to spend too much time because I'm not an expert on some of these things, right? There's nuances to some of this stuff, right? Okay, well, this is an idea. I kind of don't know whether I want to run that down the entire side yet. Maybe there's other flags, maybe there's other things. If a UI person just does a once over on your front end, it will be limited by your first pass though. You mean that their design will be, or their opinions will be limited to what I've already done? Oh yeah, I'm fully willing to completely change the layout of the front end. The features remain the same though, right? The how something is presented is not going to change the fact that it needs to be presented, right? Like that can change, right? That could be, and actually, I'm actually tempted to make that, and you'll see from that mock-up. I'm actually tempted to change that to an inline. You just hit add new, but I don't know what I don't find any examples of that in Mobbin, right? People are still big fans of buttons to do things, etc. Um, Flows, adding and creating. This is Mobbin, Mobbin. I paid for a year of. There's some free stuff in it. You can actually see some of the stuff without subscription, but I subbed to it to try and get me the best chance of, because it's got lots of different sites in here, lots of different analysis of how things work. So I suppose this is the closest to what I'm doing right now, right? Creating a new story, so tines. So we have a button up here, new story. We have the story here with the tags, the nice label there. When you add a story, it does a pop up. Right, we've got this right hand side kind of status stuff on the story. So one thing I could consider is instead of doing this kind of card based layout, get rid of this card based layout and have more. This is just a right hand side panel, and this is all information inside of the screen. Yeah, I don't know. So when I get to a certain point, I'm gonna consider hiring a UI UX person, going on Fiverr, going on whatever, trying to find someone to do it, and then again, I'm more than willing to change the entire color scheme. I'm more than willing to change the entire layout. Which yes, I realize could basically take months of work back. So it's why I'm not, because I'm not an expert on the layout. Why I'm doing, you know, like why do I do um, um, why are buttons there versus there? Why does text appear here over here? Those are actually nuances, and from an accessibility standpoint, it's all legalities around that. I doubt it. Around what specifically? Asking someone if they contract on the side. Um, but a lot of this right now is actually me trying to discover some of the features that I actually want. So I've got an idea, and what doing the UI has allowed me to do is think about, oh well, um, um, you know, I need this. Oh, I need this. Oh, well, where would this fit? And it's allowed me to um, kind of explore some of the extra features that I want. I was missing some of the nuances, like status on the planning item. I kind of was thinking through it today. I'm like, well, actually, you want to know when something's completed or it's actually pending or it's whatever. The review date is one aspect of that, but it's not just the only aspect, right? Um, yeah, yeah. So I'm very much trying to, I've not done a bad job recreating this, but I'm very much trying to uh, lay something out, and I'm more than happy to later on overhaul the entire thing. Maybe there's some designs that do work. Maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe it's a good idea. I don't know. So, if you accept this test, oh yeah, that'd be busted. If the acceptance tests were against the UI, absolutely busted. That would be an investment that I wouldn't. So if I was doing actual UI UX based testing full flow, yeah, it would be broken. I'd have to redo. The workflows in the acceptance test would be valid still, but the actual oh, you perceive the UX test taking too long. um, the UX test I definitely want to do. But I think they have to take a low priority over everything else. Um, and I think that when I've got all the features I really want in here, I'll know that point, and then I'll understand the system in such a way that writing those tests won't be difficult. If I'm continually changing things, I'm going to break a lot of those tests, right? So I need to get the system to a place where it is a good, stable system that has the features fleshed out, right? Um, if someone was alongside me writing those acceptance tests, then maybe, yeah, they could change them. They'd know, oh, well, this feature is going to change that, so I can work on that acceptance test. But being that I'd be writing the acceptance test, I'd basically be saying, okay, well, now I'll set myself back another couple of hours because I've now got to go fix those tests as well. I've got to fix this, right? So I need to understand what the system's doing for real. Like, again, I've got a vision here. I do know what I'm aiming for. Um, but I know that there's the nuances of that, right? There's the little pieces, the status, the permissions, all the little weird things that are going to trip me up once I start to realize what it is I'm doing. Sorry. Um, yeah. When I write the acceptance test, you'd want the features around it to be solidified. Yeah. Yeah. So, um, I want to make sure that I'm in a good place with the overall application before I actually start doing that sort of stuff. So, I'm not winning this. I don't have the cough necessarily, but I have like the congestion to the point where I'm like not. I'm not trying to turn away and cough every 5 seconds. Um. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to continue building out an idea, right? Whether I make this, whether I make the actual app look like the idea, I'm not sure yet. Because again, this is a lot of time spent, right? I could spend an awful lot of time doing this, and one line's taking a better approach to this in terms of starting with the overall entry point, but one line knows what he's doing in terms of the finance aspects of things, right? Um, the app has already been written. It's a redesign, rewrite of that platform. So one line is very much focused on the UI UX components and designing the flow and even the marketing entry page because the product aspect of it. Whereas I'm kind of, I know I have a vision. I want to build towards that vision and I'm going to find the nuances as I start to build out features. Um, so the UI UX is going to be more fluid. And again, like I'm thinking maybe I do add new and it pops in the two text boxes here. Is that a good accessibility feature? Is my current way inaccessible? Right? Is this an actual nightmare for accessibility? Um, are the cards a really good idea? You know, a true UI UX professional understands not just how to lay these things out, but also how to present them in a way that they are readable, they're understandable, they're clean, and they're accessible. Mr. Jones, good morning. How are you doing? How is your cough doing? So, I need to make a commit. What about this slide over? I do like how relatively simple that is. And then the rest of the stuff. Still running analysis. Awesome. So, let's call. I changed so much. Let's tackle the back end first. So we added the GUID to the requirement add returns a GUID. That wasn't originally happening. Now we pass in the requirement rather than building the requirement within here, which is actually a bit cleaner. So that's there. factor. Well, that's going to be important for every entity I create that's going to go into a store, or pretty much any entity I create. I'm going to have to return the GUID for that entity. That's going to be a standard. Because you define this today. How do I define it? What is my moat? Remind me again how I define that. Adding file upload to requirements is such a good meme. Sounds like. Sorry, Endo Functor. How you doing? Okay. My standout feature. Adding file upload to requirements is such a good meme. Sounds like in search of a problem for the solution. Also love it when the exact UI interactions are listed in the. Yeah, I'm gonna get to the file upload part first. So my application relies really upon, and the reason I was messing with the UI UX is because I wanted to figure out how to display some of this stuff. This is a prominent feature that it's not really focused on, right? So this is the review date, right? So every item in my system will have a review date. That review date is a must, right? You cannot avoid it. You cannot defer it. You can set it out in the future if you wanted to, but then people would be alerted to the fact that it is so far out, etc. Right? So the goal here is this review date will constantly keep fighting to be seen, and the idea being that other people in the company sorry, can yeah. So planning items. Oh my god, this is gonna kick my butt today. Okay, so I suppose I'm doing several things that I think that are needed in tools like Jira and other products, right? So the first one is the review date. The review date is a date in which you cannot avoid, you cannot I could set rules for, right? That will I'm struggling to think because I can't speak without the congestion. But I could set rules like you can't set a review date more than a month in advance, so you can't set a review date greater than 6 months out. Right. So the review date is very much a focus piece that when people sign up to be notified, I was trying to Did I do it last night? No, I think I removed the design. But what I want to do is basically allow someone to say, okay, I want to be notified. I want to be notified when the review date expires. I want to be notified when this status of this thing changes, and they can subscribe to different interactions with this thing, right? If notes are added, if requirements are added, etc., someone might not care, but they do care if the review date expires or the status of this entity changes, so that they can review it, right? Also allowing people to add notes or tags to the planning item themselves, so that they can categorize where that lies. So the review date is part one, right? The next thing, the planning item, is a concept of, this is a piece of work that is going to be kind of worked upon, right? Is a design, is something for them to kind of add these requirements in, right? We'll allow file attachments so individual screens can be represented here. And then when we go to promote this to become a story or many stories, those requirements will be pulled through as acceptance criteria into the actual story. But the planning item can be used as a discussion. It can be used as an actual evolution. Sorry, I was trying to not read the text because I was like trying to flow through what I was about to say. Jira has an existing architecture that will limit them. You have a greenfield project, you can build it better and be able to develop things easier than them. Yeah. I have the benefit of hindsight, right? I have the benefit of, here's what I would do differently and why I don't like things. The biggest problem that these tools become is, and this could suffer the same fate, right? That is individuals and interactions over processes and tools, right? I actually should make a badge on the stream and put that somewhere on the screen all the time, right? So what I'm trying to focus on is the individuals and interactions, right? So I'm trying to make sure that the individual is able to express what they feel is the story. Developers could discuss here. Planning and development could meet before this ever becomes stories, right? So that you can evolve these requirements, right? The idea of the requirements being, these are what makes up this, right? When you go to create stories, many stories could come from a single planning item, because actually now you can drill down and say, oh, well, this, and this actually fit this story. So let's make them one story, right? So this can be a collaborative exercise, right? So it's about the individuals and the interactions, right? But the problem is when you get to tools like Jira, if you've looked at Jira, right, you can add custom fields, you can have all this, and what happens is people start to stuff new things into the tooling to try and fit the process they think they need, rather than trying to understand a better process or a cleaner process, because the communication breakdown. Yeah. So I do have the benefit of being able to pick and choose. I wonder if file upload is part of MVP. Yeah. Yeah. Well, MVP for this is could I punt on file upload? Yes, I could actually move to notes first. Is there value in this as a tool without having file upload? Maybe. Visuals help, right? Visuals are a key component if you're doing again. The ability to add those things helps build out these stories, right? So again, when I start dog fooding this, I'll create a mock-up, save it, and attach it to a requirement. Right, that will be the goal. Right, so that then when we build the stories, those images are attached to those requirements. Right. I've actually had a few thoughts recently on that process. Yes, yeah, I dog food well before I give it to any user to play with. Right, before you guys get hands on this to play, because the stream will be the first group that gets any access to any version of it. Water, drink water. Is that a prompt? Yeah, I mean, we could actually plan water, drink water in the Agile platform planning tools. Yeah, that would be a good use. um, yeah, the file upload. Do I change that? It's kind of required. I can't see a world where there's a much benefit without being able to attach visuals. Uh, Technically, no. But to really build any form of useful flow. So, as we know, planning items is the planning component is the first of the three major components of the application that I'm building, right? So ultimately, ticketing and stories will be separate components of the system. Planning items make sense because it's kind of building and collecting data, right? Building and collecting information. And from a discussion perspective, yeah, watering water, you could potentially use this to build out the flow and figure out things. Well, yeah. So implementation 1 could be very dumb. Just a simple file upload, save to server. Don't worry about everything else. More involved process, more involved using cloud storage, etc. Another evolution of that. What I'm wondering right now, though, is actually if I need to focus a little bit more on. I'm starting to rethink. Well, isn't one of the benefits of, I believe, do I remember this incorrectly? Isn't there some sort of built-in scan for file uploads to things like Azure and S3? They don't blindly just take files, do they? Or am I misremembering that? I know I've looked at something like this before. But that would be an evolution of that, right? Because if I just allow file upload to my local server, I've technically got to scan any files. But again, that's an evolution. That's not a necessity, but it is something that you can't lose track of. I'm starting to think. So one of the let me get this actually let me get the commit done and I can get the code in a good place because I'm now thinking about it a bit more. So we have the events. No, we don't need view consumers. We need event service. Event for so we do need that and that. Consumer. Don't need that anymore. This is going to evolve so much more. That was not fun, I'll be honest. Oh, I haven't committed any of this. This is ridiculous. I should get into better habits here. Because I'm evolving the features, I'm just letting myself just kind of build through and not really considering the independent commits because I'm worried that I'm going to have to go and change something. And it's meaning that I'm leaving massive commits out there. Applied unit tests for updated Ocelot configuration for requirement endpoint. So let's push all them. And I've not been pushing them either, so that's even worse. Some bad habits there already forming. So, I've often wondered. I've looked at legacy systems. I've looked at applications that have been around for years, for decades even. And how did they let it get in this mess? How did this happen? Like, why didn't you just be better developers? And why didn't they write clean code? And why didn't they do this, right? And hindsight's great, right? It's really easy to say, looking at some code that was written 10, 20 years ago, well, they could have done better. Yeah, maybe they could have done, but they didn't do. And I'm trying to build a product, right? I'm not trying to build a little side project that I will take to a certain point and then scrap, right? I really do want to commit everything I have to doing this, right? This is a goal. So I have to work extra hard to try and uphold my standards because again I'm focused on getting something, right? Now, right now my timeline is I'll push as hard as I can. I'll do what I can. But at some point I'm gonna have to set actual solid targets. Otherwise I'm going to hold that attitude, right? So I've got to, for my own sake, kind of, and again, I'm kind of wishy-washy a little bit because there's features I'm not sure about what I want, how I want them to handle. But at some point, I'm going to have to sit down and figure out, okay, what is MVP? Like, to your question, Delta, right? What is actually MVP, right? To me, right now, MVP feels like when I can log into this application, add a planning item, add requirements, add notes to the planning item, work through that workflow of what is a planning item. When another person logs in, they can also track this item, so they can be told of changes to the item, right? Then take that planning item to completion, right? Completion in this case is just being it's complete, right? It's not there's no more to do on it, or it's been promoted to a story. Ultimately, a planning item, you want all planning items to result in stories, but that might not always be the case, right? So, yeah, so the MVP, as far as I can see it right this second, is you can create a planning item, you can add all the information to it, and you can mark it as complete, right? That is an MVP, with notifications, with notes and everything like that, right? That would be the minimum viable product for this. But that wouldn't even be a product, because it's not really very useful without anything else, right? Because it's not going to do anything if I just say, okay, well, it's started, it's complete, done. So there's other things, right? There's other views, there's other, what does it result in? The problem with this piece itself is the ideal usage of it is it's a staging area for information, right? It's not an end product. So I have to consider what that means in terms of a product. Now, this makes the most sense out of the three items, because it kind of allows me to visualize the most out of this review date aspect, right? Tickets will have a review date, but tickets aren't going to really demonstrate that problem in the same way, right? I might have to introduce a view that is kind of a ready planning view, which is when everything's complete, it's moved into the ready status, or there's like some view of, initiatives might be that way. The example text should probably be from Water Drink Water Project. Feels like your data is too generic at the moment. Right, yeah, focusing the data on the actual use case might actually help visualize some of these pieces. Yeah. Yeah, if I actually start focusing on the problem is when you're doing this sort of the way I was doing this, right? I'm adding so much information in here that you start to get bored of the data, and that's always why I say when you're writing unit tests, don't write actual data into unit tests, because it starts to because if you get bored of writing the data, you start to get funny, and then the data loses value. Whereas the data should just be very generic and clear what that data is. Yeah. So yeah, once I actually start to build this out, then yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't. Like this, I'll write silly data in there because I'm adding items all the time, and there's no value. I like my example data to be almost the exact same as the real data. Yeah. So, okay, file upload. Let's get to that part. I need to merge them. Can't merge that one. Liquid Sky. elements of input data to be almost the exact same as the real data with the exact modifier there due to personal identifiable information. Right. So the problem with using realistic data, you might not have experienced it yet, but it comes from people making assumptions about what data should be where, or confusing what they're actually seeing because they're trying to understand the data as well as the fields in which it sits, right? So if I have a name field, the value of the name field will be called name. If I have a description field, the value will be description, so that if you see it, it aligns directly to, there's a consistent standard there of it aligns directly. IDs and stuff, I number, I tend to number out like individual sequences based upon the entity. It's just my experience of dealing with people putting sample data in. Oh, unit tests are failing. That's not good. Should check that before I run. I wish there was a way of doing, before you do a push, having it say, okay, I'm going to fire the unit test, by the way. Oh, that's actually pretty bad. All right. Ah. Um, will that work? I've got a feeling that's what it's breaking on. I think it's not building an actual planning item. No worries. Thanks, Delta. I appreciate the conversation as always. It's always fun to get into some of these things, and talk about this stuff. And thank you. You do allow me to at least challenge myself. No. I do want to get stuff done, but it's like, you know, allowing, having the discussion to push back a little bit allows me to really think. Like the challenge of working on a project on your own. And I know it's hard with this project because the context is not easy to pick up all the time, especially if you're new to the stream. But having someone ask you a question can make all the difference to your understanding of what it is you're actually trying to do. So I do really do appreciate it. This unit test is failing, and I think it's because it's not building this planning item. So this object builder is a way of building an item when I have a private constructor on the entity, right? So it kind of uses reflection to build up an object. So either it's missing some fields. Let's go and have a look. Build entity. Let's have a look. So the result is a planning item. The requirements is empty. There are some mocks, but this is the problem with this is because of the design pattern I chose for how I construct objects. This has to kind of build. To give it the mock data, or to give the data to the mock, I have to construct an entity, which means I have to build one. Dynamically. So what this is doing is it actually goes and gets the constructor, even if it's a private constructor, and it goes and gets the actual properties of the object. Then it constructs an instance of that object using the constructor, even if it's a private one, and then maps them. So the mocks here, the mocks in this unit test are the repository and the publisher, right? Because the system under test is actually the integration handler. And I'm verifying that given data, I publish exactly what I expect. But that looks like an intact planning item. Yeah. So let's. So what this is meant to do is, okay, when I ask for the planning item from the repository, and because I've got this, the specs are the hardest thing to test right now because I can't actually specify, I can't be specific about the spec that I'm testing, just because the way that's I'd have to change the way I build the spec for the testing, which I don't agree with. So I'm going with this pattern right now. So we do have an object, we do have an actual planning item. So what should happen is when I go in here, I should get a planning item back, and I'm not getting a planning item back. What would that have taught me? So I'm getting an argument no. So why? Because that shouldn't matter. It should be any spec, yeah. You typically write London style tests, switching to Glasgow. You're well more studied on the actual styles of unit testing. I think it's the same as like software in general. I don't try and align to any specific. I feel that the best style of unit tests are the ones that you trust. So I don't care how I write them, what practices I use necessarily, as long as I'm confident that they're actually testing the code. And I'm more than happy to change them if they actually are. So, I really respect your ability to study those things. Yeah, I can't. I'm as pretty much established at this point. I'm not a go off and read a lot and understand a great deal. I want to play and do and tinker and fail. Why is that not building that object? Because it looks like it's building that object. Recall that with any identity, unless I change to how. I was giving it the wrong. I've seen that behavior before where it says not planning item because it can't construct the object properly. But in this instance, what was happening was I changed the type of spec I was asking. So I wasn't asking for it by its identifier because I actually need this specific one because I need to include requirements in the actual query. So that's why that was failing there. So change. So that's my bad. I shouldn't have changed that code. Or I shouldn't have changed the code and then not run a unit test. But again, that's kind of the problem when you don't introduce unit tests for every single thing, which is sadly what I'm currently doing. Then you don't start to align that. So I need to train that behavior a little bit better and start to make sure that I have unit tests for all code and that they're run. Change of spec for our caused issue. I changed. If that had have been based off that event, off that spec, that would have worked. So we got those all running. When planning item integration event received, update planning item command is sent. So this is the hook from Kafka to Service Bus. So I received this event. I have a planning item receiver, and I should expect to send the update of the planning item. So what's it telling me? Like, can that be null source? This doesn't require requirements, so I don't feel that's the problem. Ads may be about to run. I do apologize if you're in the stream and will be hit with the ads. I do run the 3 minutes of ads to try and keep the pre-rolls away for an hour. So I do apologize. It seems to be the best possible way of giving the longest possible time between ads and allowing people to come into the stream. If you do have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to share. I'm always open to discussion about software development, and yeah, it's my thing. So what am I missing? Subject receive. I think I had to receive async. Subject. Yeah, it's all working. Oh, what am I doing? What did I do there? I want to short circuit the whole async stuff because obviously I'm in a unit test. I'm not going to await that actual call. Thanks for the like, Dota. I appreciate it. I don't want to wait on it. No. We're saying it's not happening. It's happening at that line, so it's happening in here. So is one of these null? That shouldn't be. Do I have do I have an expected value that? Oh, requirements. Oh, hold on. Which version of requirement? This is going to get old really quick. So there's a version on the integration event, so because it maps it. See if that passes. It's required, so it's not expected. So it needs that to construct the object. There you go. Right. This doesn't save you. This just stops it complaining about the fact that this is not nullable. So this is saying, okay, just accept null for now, and you'll be set later. But because I don't set it, it's now not valid when I construct the object. Not often write messages that I'm being humorous about, but can always be an exception to the rule. Okay, so let's push that. It's 8:07. Awesome. Hades, thank you very much for the follow. Hi, how are you doing? Wait for that to build again. Not bad, not bad. Not making as much progress today as I want to, but I'm getting there. Waiting for these checks to pass. Did I push that then? I did push it, right? No, I did not push it. Got to push the changes for them to actually apply. There you go. Building. No one ever makes as much progress as they want. Tell me about it. But the benefit is that I did have at least, so it was good for Dota to be here to be able to kind of discuss and let me think about whether I do want to do what I was about to do, right? Whether it's necessary. And I think it might be worth deferring a little bit for the file upload and focus more on some of the extra pieces. So what I'm working on is an Agile project, an Agile management platform tool, and I'm starting with the planning of items, right? So you'll be able to add a planning item, go into the planning item and add requirements to that planning item. There'll be notes, there'll be other things, etc. What I was considering today is adding file uploads to these items so you can attach screenshots, images, etc. to those requirements because they are very much what's expected, right? Right now I've just got a full click on here. That probably won't be there forever. So do I do file upload? What am I doing? This looks cool. I'm on integrated.net. Feels really daunting at the start for me. Yeah. So I've been doing .NET for 20 years. I can definitely see how it's daunting, especially considering there's so many different options out there for, what do you want to do, right? If you want to do game dev, there's things like Godot and Unity that use C Sharp. If you want to do web development, there's a plethora of frameworks to use from the web development standpoint, APIs, etc. If you want to do desktop or mobile development, there's a lot of options there. 82 files still against dev. It's just no joke of a pull request. So have you used other languages, other frameworks, or are you relatively new to software development in general? Not really new, but never had to write code regularly, like a long-term hobby programmer, I guess. Okay. So if you are interested, and it's just an option, on Monday and Tuesdays on stream, I work on a project called Water Drink Water. So this is a project that's aimed at being just kind of a simple, easy, fun project that is a simple .NET web API with some basic components working with a SQL-like database. And then I have been developing a UI for it in Blazor, but the idea is that anyone can come along and contribute their own clients to the actual project, right? If they want to develop a new UI for it or whatever against the same API, just for the practice. But that is what I do on Mondays and Tuesdays on stream, which is a little bit more accessible from the .NET perspective than what I'm working on right now. It's not meant to be a reference application. It's not meant to be here's a really good practice. It's meant to be could we do this way? What about this way? Why don't we do it that way? It's really aimed at being a very much a discussion thing. I don't do any work on it off stream. I do not touch it. I do not change anything. All PRs are reviewed on stream. And again, the application is there to discuss, to talk about, to tinker with. And there is a channel in the Discord dedicated for it. So if there's questions, thoughts, opinions on it, etc. I'm trying to build out a list of issues and things that people can pick up as well. I just do programming for personal projects, so not worried about references, etc. Okay. Yeah. This project is a little bit heavier. Well, a lot heavier. This is this is using a lot of technologies. There should be one in the cards below on Twitch. If not, let me. Oh, there's a link there. And again, even if it's for your personal project, if you've got questions, thoughts, you want some help, you're more than welcome to post in Discord. There are several people in there that are generally quite active. I always check it as well, so I'm more than happy to discuss. Okay, so let's merge. So we got the request status that allows us to indicate that we're loading, so that'll be useful in the future. The notification subscription, so we can notify things have changed. Got some ideas around that. Planning items, requirements, notification, add planning item. We added a requirement to the integration event. We have an event. Welcome. Yeah, so this main project is using a lot of different technologies right now. It's using primarily for communication. It's using Kafka, Apache Kafka. We're using mass transit with a service bus for some components, and that usage is growing. SQL Server, there's lots of different pieces. Actually, the best way of me showing what this system's doing right this second is kind of this diagram. So, this system separates all its reads from its writes. The benefit being I can store data very quickly in the write side. Geez, it's insanely complicated. It's there's a lot of moving parts, but it's overall not that complicated in terms of how it functions. So the idea is this is the clients, right? So this is this. I have an API gateway because each one of these components of the system is its own API set up behind the gateway, right? So the client communicates with one address and a set of URLs, and each one of those is distributed to the correct API behind the scenes, which allows you to build a unified client that looks like it's all going to the same backend, but it's not. Right. So what happens is these APIs, I write the data into the instance, into the planning item table in this data store. When I've stored that, when I've saved it, and only when I've saved it, do I publish an event to Kafka that says, here's the current state of this planning item, right? So this planning item now is published into Kafka. The reason being, right now, the consumer in here, in the view side, pulls that information out of Kafka, stores it in its own data store, and it can store it optimized for its own needs. It can store it specifically for read, right? Optimized and formatted accordingly. And then there's a GraphQL API sat here where the client reads from, right? And again, it's aimed at going through the gateway. So the client only talks to one address for everything it needs. But it's all moving parts behind the scenes. The benefit of doing this sort of system is, as I produce this data, other things can pick it out, right? So if I introduce search as a concept, right, I don't necessarily want to use the database that I've optimized for my reads to use for my search, right? Because the reads could be indexed and whatnot just to be able to pull the data out quickly by an ID or by a name or whatever. But that doesn't make search good. And if I try and introduce search on the same schema, I'm going to blur the lines. I'm going to make a mess. So I can build a search database. And because these events are consumable from anywhere, right, I can now build up a search index and then pull the same messages out of there at the same time and build a search system up. And then this GraphQL API can be used to read from the search database when it's doing search versus when it's doing this. So there's a great deal of flexibility involved in this system. It looks complicated, and there are a lot of moving parts, but with time and a bit of practice, it's actually not too difficult. And it does allow me to break down the system into really logical chunks. You can't convince me otherwise. Absolutely. But it means that when I'm saving planning, right? So again, because I break the system down into these components, right? I don't have to search for planning. How do I add a planning item? Well, I go to the planning component. I can see an endpoint, and I can go to the application, and I can see, add planning item, and that is adding a planning item, right? So it does allow me to using CQRS. CQRS is command query responsibility segregation. So my commands and my queries are different. But this is adding a planning item. That's it. So it does make it simpler and more readable and more understandable. So once you get used to the structure of the system, it's not actually that complicated. I don't have to go hunting around for a great deal of time to search for things. Sorcery, hello, how are you doing? How are things today? Not bad. As it may be obvious, my voice is kind of a bit strained today. Yet more fun. But at least I'm not coughing every 5 seconds. I started the stream like that. So, yeah, this system, okay, it's not going to be your average to-do app, or it's not going to be it's not a very simple app in terms of the amount of technology. But overall, the idea is that it is a consistent app. So I won't try and convince you further, Hades, that the app is not complicated. So we did. So I've got to do with at least the basic review. Yeah, bit by bit, day by day. I've got to at least do the basic review of what I'm doing here to make sure that I'm not going to merge code in that I don't want. Still not sure that's required. Planning out DB context, adding requirements, endpoint requirements post. So that's adding the actual requirement. Setting the defaults in the entity base, so we can remove the default constructor. No hardship there. New requirement spec, and adding the update. Ugh. The view aspect is actually the messier side of things. What's your thoughts on Blazor? It's not. I'm not a big fan of Blazor, and I think that's coming from the fact that I don't use it enough to get confident in it, and I think that it's a kind of fractured technology in terms of the server, the client, the WebAssembly stuff. Microsoft are willing to release things broken with it. The whole Maui mess as well. How does that fit into their story? Like, to me, it seems like Blazor is a technology that Microsoft is not wholly committed to, but they kind of want to make a thing. And every time I go near it, I struggle with certain concepts because I do like the separation of an API and a client side of things. Water Drink Water, I deliberately made a Blazor WebAssembly app to make sure I tried to do it. Right. So the default UI in Water Drink Water right now, another person is working on a React version of the client. The default view is a Blazor WebAssembly, deliberately to try and test myself and force myself to use it a little bit. It works. But as of right now, I'm not really a big fan of using Blazor. One Lion is a proponent of Blazor. Deflux is also a proponent of Blazor, but he doesn't stream very often. He hasn't streamed in a long time. But I can't do another shout out within 30 seconds. The part that is appealing to me is that a newbie that only wants to do quite simple things, it seems like a nice blanket tool. Yeah, and it keeps you in C# as well. So there is a great benefit from that perspective in terms of the language doesn't change much. But my problem is the what's the word? I can't think of it. The language might not change, but the actual way you develop and what tools are available to you does change. So it can be challenging. Thanks for the shower. I do love me some Blazor, but I'm always in favor of using tools that you are proficient in. Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to make sure as well that I'm not a Blazor fan. I'm not going to shout from the rooftops it's the best tool in the world. So if I'm going to say something about it, then I'm going to say, hey, well, go and look at someone who is a proponent to get an actual perspective that is as someone who's a fan, because it might be it might address some of the things that I have concerns over. Because again, you use it more as well, right? I'm not actively using it on a daily basis, so I haven't got that experience of it. And so my experience has been touching it every now and then as a kind of toy project. And the reason I didn't want to use it for this application is because I'm more comfortable with Angular. Only about 14 to 18 hours. You actually code for 14 to 18 hours a day. Totally makes sense to work with tools you know well. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and pragmatism, right? You gotta look at those things and say, oh, how can I be the most productive? Which is why I chose Angular for this, because I don't want to get stuck on some of the things that are in Blazor challenge me. Well, there's research involved, and I guess I've been doing a lot of design work during the stream, but I am writing code just about the entire workday and for the contract position in the evening. Okay, so you do have 2 jobs. So you're burning the candle at both ends. So I created a base class because I'm querying the spec from different perspectives here. I queried the thing. Those are quirky unit tests. Description. That's fine. Okay, so that looks overall good. We're good to go with that. Don't think you're going to get to file upload today, do I? Discussion was worth it, though. I know one of those guys code all day, come home, code some more. Well, one line's doing it for a job as well. But I love what I do, right? I'm more than happy to. I would have no issues with 14 to 18 hours of coding a day if at least 10 or 8 to 10 of those were my personal stuff, right? I'm a big believer in leave work at work sort of, especially at this point. I don't believe in, like, I love development, right? I love software development. I love writing code. I love getting better. Then for me, I'm 100% remote from my day job. The real change is going from working on the workstation at my standing desk to the couch in the evenings from contract to have with another company. Yeah. That being said, I have been considering looking at that sort of stuff to try and earn some extra. So let's check out this branch. Let's update. This is still running, by the way. This is interesting. Let's see how it handles it. Delete that. Did I pull that? Nice. That stayed up. So this is still working, by the way, because it's using the stores. It's not making GraphQL calls every time. So that's why this is still navigable right now. Probably should have to run. So I think, as much as I want to do file upload, right? I think it's not. I generally mean I enjoy the work. I'm not the biggest fan of the team I work with in the day job, but the product is so much fun. But leaving that job in a few months to go full time with the company of his client in the evenings. Huh. Come on. It's rebuilding everything. Come on, let's finish. See, for me, if I could choose at this point what I got, I feel that leading a team is the best use of my skill set from a development perspective, not from a necessarily managerial perspective, but from a development perspective. Greenfield projects are always fun, right? That would be ideal. But working with others, like the beginning of this stream, right? I started with the idea I'm going to do file upload, and I still want to do it. But in the same, I'm like, well, having that discussion with Dota allowed me to reconsider and think, okay, well, maybe I don't need to focus on that right now. But things like the status and things like notes, things might actually do better to add more volume to the actual planning item than it would be to add a file upload right this second, right? I've heard of people staying in a job because of the people they were working with, staying because the product itself is far less common. Yeah. One line of you always love coding, working a lot. I would also like to mention that I do get to spend a lot of time with my wife. When I work in the evening, she's on the couch next to me and she's usually reading a book out loud that we both get to enjoy together. And I devote my entire weekend to doing things with her. Yeah, you don't see you on the Twitch on the weekends very much, which I think is great. Definitely not something I discovered while I was working, struggling through uni. Yeah, huh. Yeah, I've always loved software. I've always loved writing code, and well, since I discovered it, um, and really discovered it. Like I picked up when I got a VIC 20 for Christmas in 1985. I tried writing code out of the book and got bored, and kind of tinkered back and forth for years. Doing those things, but didn't really get into development. And then when I was like 15, 16, starting to go to college, I picked up more books and started really trying to look at development and really just got engrossed. And yeah, I love doing this. But I think I love sharing this as well. I love working with others and the sense of achievement you get when you're developing. Oh, that's one of the new features, the collapse thing. When you're developing good software and achieving something and delivering something, I think I enjoy that feeling. don't do this. It's going to be difficult. Okay, we'll start running. The problem with trying to build a solution with 48 projects in it, if they can't be copied. Okay, well, in the meantime, let's delete that branch. Again, I don't like leaving branches lying around. I do not like leaving any questionable content lying around in the repository. I think it should all be removed the moment you're confident that it's done. The only thing I'm leaving here right now is this Couchbase tickets, because I do want to readdress Couchbase. I definitely want to come back around on Couchbase and how it's used. In that whole in the vein of not just what you feel comfortable with, but also using the right tools for the job. I think there's definitely areas of this application stack that will benefit from things like document DBs. I didn't actually start doing software dev until my freshman year in uni. Before that, I knew I wanted to be an inventor of some sort. I always had an affinity for technology, but I had very little exposure to writing code. With a Commodore 64 with a thick book that came with it, some QBasic, lots of typing classes, but nothing formal in the way of writing actual code. Failed hard my freshman year and had so much trouble understanding syntax, object-oriented principles. Yeah, principles are where I fall down on all the time. Yeah, man. Is that loading or no? I finally buckled down and started getting it around 3 years into my very rocky university career. It all just seemed to start clicking, and I got into a lot more self-guided stuff while finishing out school. I haven't been able to stop coding since. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Nice. Yeah, I mean, in college, I picked up a magazine in the summer before I started college. In my second year of college. So college in the UK is kind of like an extension to high school. So it's like 16, well, 18 normally. I dropped out my first course and started again when I was 17. So I did 17 to 19 technically. But I remember finding out what was on the curriculum for the next year. And that summer I saw a magazine with a Ball and Delphi 2 free copy on the front of it and a CD. And I was like, that's what we're doing next year. So I bought the magazine and I spent the entire summer building apps in Ball and Delphi. And, or Delphi, however you want to pronounce it. I was like super excited to learn more about this and learn how to write applications better. And I could do all these cool things. I've been writing apps all summer. And the teacher walks in and he has Ball and Delphi 3, this book. And I'm like, oh, cool, we're going to use a newer version. This is going to have so much more cool stuff in it than what I've got. And it's like getting started in Ball and Delphi 3, and he opens it to page 1. He's like, okay, first open the tool, click on the icon. And I remember that feeling of like, oh, like the dread just going through me, like, we're not going to learn how to use this, are we? We're going to learn how to open this and learn how to stick buttons on forms and things. And like, but I've done all this on my own. I've figured all this out. Like, why do I want to sit through? So I sat there for weeks, just actually sat at the computer, like typing and hoping no one had noticed because I was building apps myself. And then he's trying to explain the project that we're going to do. And I wrote the project. He's like, okay, we're going to do this and this and this and this. And I'm writing it as he's talking about it. And he's like, okay, now you've got 2 weeks. I'm like, but I just finished it. So I was his worst nightmare because I was, oh, come on, this is driving me nuts. Other people saw me doing it, so it kind of undermined him a little bit. And then they came to me for help with their projects for the 2 weeks. Yeah. Needless to say, I did not pass college. But that sort of energy and passion has just kept with me since. And I refuse to give up on trying to learn new things and do new things. 25 years later, I'm still trying to chase learning and building software, building it better, learning new techniques, right? Trying to do new things and not just stagnating, because I don't want to be that crusty old guy that sat in the corner that's like, oh, we used to do it this way, so why can't we still do it this way, right? I don't want to be that developer. I found creative things to do in the Cubase class. It was a very similar experience. I remember writing a song across 4 of the lab computers and starting them at the same time to play chords and such. Oh, you mean my team members? I just find it incredibly, like, 20, 25, 30 years ago, right? I can understand there was this bunch of developers that come from like the 60s and 70s. Computers didn't evolve quite as fast. But once we got into the late 90s, into the early 2000s, things started to accelerate. So any developers from that period, I cannot understand how they do not understand this need to keep up with what they're doing. They were super talented and knowledge, but they were still coding like it's the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. Yep. Like, I don't understand anyone that is from that period. Like, those from the 60s and 70s have now gone. There's very few of them developers around. And those that are still around they've pretty much evolved with everything, right? So, it's not like no one has evolved from that era, but it's like, I don't understand the mindset. That mindset is so powerful. I stopped learning for a long time to try and catch up is going to be a long journey. Yeah, and catch up is you'll never catch up, right? We're always behind. Like right now, the gaps in my knowledge, cloud stuff is still a massive gap in my knowledge. I really want to understand it, but where do I spend the time? Where do I spend the energy? Right? I'm going to have to at some point try and learn a bit more about how to deploy cloud apps and do all those sorts of things, because as an architect, right? That's a massive hole. AI, machine learning, that entire component of things. That's something I want to catch up with. That will have an impact no matter what we do. That will have an impact. I do have some plans for integrating that sort of stuff into this application, by the way. I want to test story writing with it, right? Can I describe something here and have this kind of built out for me, right? Is that possible, right? I want to experiment with that sort of stuff. But there's holes in my knowledge, and I'll constantly be chasing things. But I think that's the key: is can I learn, right? Not I can't get there, so I'll never bother. It's like, okay, well, if I've got the focus, if I've got the need to do it, can I pick it up? And I think that's a skill that you need to train. Is not necessarily I need to be good at everything. Like
I never understand people who write, I've learned HTML, I've learned CSS, I've learned JavaScript. What next? Right? Really? You've learned the syntax, maybe. You've memorized it, but you don't know how to effectively use it, right? Like, so I think that you always have to be able to adapt and able to learn, and I think that's a key talent, and then willing as well, especially in an environment with other people with technologies that are moving. If you close your mind to it, then you can't evolve and you can't improve. Like again, have SQL Server, right? Yeah, like poker, can learn it in a day, takes a lifetime to master. Yeah, and there's always new challenges in front of you, right? There's always new things. Have SQL Server. SQL Server is backing a lot of this data right now, right? Well, it's backing all the data for the most part. But should I avoid another technology because SQL Server is easy to use, right? If I have a need for storing documents, etc. Like right now, sorry, these are very document based, right? There's nothing searchable. There's nothing really clever about this data. A document DB would be able to retrieve all of this extremely quickly. So I could potentially put a planning item with all its requirements and notes, and even its list of attached files in a document DB in a single document by a planning item, which means that when I go in here and say retrieve this, I could pull the entire thing down and retrieve it. Maybe that's a good use. Maybe that's not a good use. I'm not entirely sure. But I shouldn't close my mind to that concept just because I've got SQL Server, right? 8:48. I don't think I'm getting file upload done today. So, inspired by you online, I have come back to try and at least build out some of these concepts as visuals in my Figma boards. I'm kind of experimenting with a few ideas here, right? So maybe tabulating this, maybe showing some more information down the side. What's your thoughts on the LLMs craze? I think there's a lot of potential for helping. One Lion again is another good stream. One Lion has an LLM running, and does use those tools. But I don't think we're going to be worrying about replacing developers anytime soon. That's for certain. Another tool to learn not to do things I'm not really good at. Yeah. So, like I said, for this, I think there could be some potential if I can get some prompts trained enough. Can I get this to generate me? If I give it a description of what I'm after, can I get it to build out some requirements for me? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, it's all possible. So one of the things I'm not trying to do here, right, by the way, I started the stream talking about this, is I don't want to go too far ahead with the UI because I actually do want to find a UI UX expert at some point and have them attack the thing. I need the UI to work to explore some of the things that I need, right? Because again, a lot of the core ideas I have down as to how I want this app to work, but there's intricacies. The status of a planning item. That's something that I was kind of considering the last couple of days, right? What does attachments mean, right? Attachments is file uploads. Well, I want to be able to attach a an image to a requirement, but should that requirement show the attachment in here, or should I show it as attachments and kind of link back, right? Attachments could be linked to the planning item. Attachments could be linked to the requirements. There's all sorts of intricacies there. How do I add a thing is not really a big concern of mine. It's more the data, and I'm trying to use this to explore what do I actually need, right? When does this planning item become useful? I do have, so the goal of this is, I should be able to add a requirement. I should be able to add a planning item, right? So new planning item. How's this going to be? I'm going to try and think of something that's realistic to what I want to do. Allowing other users to subscribe. Hi, Judicus, how you doing? How's things? This is where this tooling, I need to make this tooling better. I need to make this a more actual editable text box, maybe introduce markdown, etc. in there. Because I can't. No, I can't edit. Right. So add a again, this is another field. So one of the concepts I want to introduce is this ability to say, okay, well, if you've created this planning item and I care about this planning item, I should be able to come into the planning item and hit a button. I was kind of experimenting with, that's why I was messing around with this. I was kind of experimenting with, do I, is this the one? No, not that one. This one. Do I have something like, do I kind of have a button that is like a subscribe button there? Do I play around with that ordering? Do I tinker with that sort of, where do I put that, right? Those are kind of important things to understand how I want to lay the app out, but more importantly is the actual functionality there. So hence why I'm tinkering with the UI UX a little bit. But that need is kind of, I'm evolving that need. So if I don't even understand that feature, how I want that feature yet, how can I design a UI UX that is going to be relevant? Because I don't know what that feature looks like or how I intend to use it. The goal here, by the way, will be, okay, well, you'll be notified of certain things because you might want to be notified if a review date expires, right? Also, the ability to add tags. If you've got, so people don't like notifications, right? That's the thing. I've seen so many complaints about notifications because notifications become noise, right? But it's a key aspect of what I want to build. I want to build this ability to notify you of things, right? So being able to identify and categorize alerts for yourself will be a key component, right? So you'll be able to say, okay, well, this is this category, this note, so it reminds you of why, right? Also, adding notes, I will provide that ability. So you'll be able to add your own notes to a planning item. It won't be visible to anyone else, but you'll be able to explain why you, or what you care about, or what impact it has on other things for you. And then, how do you digest notifications? Well, I don't want to just show everything up there, right? That's a good point. Notifications weren't working because that should have come all the way around. I had so much notification fatigue, and lately every Teams group that I ever been added to seems every updates every couple of hours, and I get a notification in Teams and email. Yeah, so I need to solve that problem, right? Because it is a key aspect of the application as a whole, but noise, right? Another challenge I have to overcome, discoverability, right? A planning item might get added. No one knows about it, right? So how do I know I care about it, right? So that's going to be a discussion, a discussion with myself, I suppose. But those are the things I'm going to do. So the reason I don't want to invest too much in UI UX at this stage is because if I do, I'm going to keep changing it, because as I add these features, as I discover these features, it's going to tell a different story, right? I'm going to have to figure things out differently. So I need to build the features. And these are MVP features, by the way. These are not necessarily nice to have. These are, I must solve this problem. It's a fundamental component of the overall future of the platform, is this ability to trigger notifications, but also make sure notifications are not noise, right? Maybe I provide an inbox. Maybe I provide an ability to say, okay, we can summarize by category which things changed and why they changed, so that you can review them, right? That is another thing you do need a UX designer for, or do, whatever the thing is called, when you have a test group run through a prototype. Right, yeah. They're good old, I need to make the UI, but not so much as to make it final, because everything is subject to change. Right, and it is, right? Because I'm not sure of so many features, developing a UI UX, and then finding out, I need to put a button somewhere, that's going to create a UI that's going to be, just stick it in there, it'll be fine. But I do genuinely want to hire a UI UX expert to come out and look at that. Yes, that might cost me a bit. So I'm going to start saving for that, right? But the goal would be they give me here's a new design. It captures all the features. Because again, by the time we get to that point, I'll have this nice tool for actually building out my requirements, right? So I'll know what I need. I just won't know how to display it properly. Right? So I'll be able to build a list of requirements and what I expect from that UI UX person. And they'll be able to give me a design that I can then go and say, okay, well, let's now go and rebuild that. So what you'll see on the stream will be me building an application UI from a design. That will be the goal. So, not the most productive of my streams, but a productive stream in terms of we've got the story merged for the planning items. So planning items are now being added. They're being created. I'm a little concerned. They did make it. I did not get notifications. Interesting. Didn't think I'd suppressed it. Oh, I know why. I know why. Watch this. New planning item. Um, It really is just called usability testing. I just thought that was more fancy term, whatever. Usability testing is a. So again, Dota mentioned it earlier on the stream, right? Acceptance testing, right? Building a full. I think the term. I don't know if the term is. No, the term's like soup to nuts, sort of. Log in, register, go through the entire thing, test all the functions, etc. Hi, Shai. How are you doing? There's no benefit in doing that until I have a solid UI. So there's all sorts of stuff I've got to do. And this is why that didn't work before, by the way, because I didn't assign a user. When I create the user, I should. So this is kind of using the stores. You see the notification appeared. So this was saved in the client. It published and it confirmed that. Need to go to the store in a sec, but I thought I'd say hello anyway. Shai, hello. May our trip to the store be good and come back with lots of good things. But the notification comes in here now to tell me that the planning item was updated. This is again, if I do this for everything, that's noise. I can't do that. And if you've subscribed to it, you'd be told, hey, so I've got to figure out that subscription channel thing, but also what do notifications mean for you? Do they roll up? Do they do something different? Right. I need to tackle that design somewhere and consider what it looks like to notify people in the way they want to be notified. But they still get visibility. Need to go, unfortunately. Got to help around the house before the stream starts. We'll be working. Have a nice rest of the stream. So, thank you very much. I'm about to finish up here anyway. Go get breakfast. And we'll be in your stream later. If you haven't checked out Sorcery, by the way, she's building an amazing looking game that I would recommend everyone check out. Hades, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for the conversation. Thank you for coming, hanging out and talking as well. And I hopefully did not overwhelm you with everything that I'm doing. So let's raid out. I'm hopefully going to get my voice back over the weekend. It would be nice not to be quite so raspy. Does anybody have any recommendations for streamers? That we could raid into? Oh no. My apologies for that. Maybe the home screen is a list of notifications like previously in planning items. That's not a bad idea, having a kind of dashboard that you can go to. I mean, again, is like one of the thoughts I did have. Actually, I didn't share it, did I? Is kind of in here when I say this. Your choice is like give the ability to say how you need to be notified about this thing, right? Is this an urgent notification? Like I always want to be notified, or is it something I can see? I don't have anything to drink, so yeah, I'll be going now. Yeah, go get something to drink, Shai, definitely. Take care. Hope your day is well, and I'll see you around Twitch. If we have no suggestions, we raided 4 bots yesterday, I believe. Are there any other dev streamers actually currently going? Like dev streamers? I'll spell that in the British way then. Talking of British. Oh, Mr. Jones joined at the beginning of the stream, I think. I do not have. That's good to know. Yeah, unnecessary evil. So yeah, notifications, dashboard. Dashboard's probably a good way. Definitely no need to apologize for. Um, okay. No need to apologize for. I are good at English. I'm doing now. There we go. We're back. My apologies. It's the challenges of like ending on the hour and starting the stream at a weird time. Oh, good. I don't know if anyone to raid. Does anybody have any suggestions? So many game dev streamers. Those app developers are few and far between, it seems. Especially this time of day. Tell you what, my stream stands out in the no pressure to raid from me. Well, raid is always a good idea. It's always a friendly thing to introduce. The problem is it's coming from no software dev I have is Beegs, yeah. Me too. The problem is going into a game dev stream from an app dev stream is it's challenging because your viewership isn't necessarily aligned. But you all know Beegs at this point. So let's go right over there. I like to take people forward anyway. We'll go right in. I will be back on Monday. There's pretty much zero chance of a stream over the weekend this weekend because this voice needs to get fixed, so I need the time. So I'll be back on Monday. We'll do some drink water. I'll continue working on this and thinking about this as well. You're more than welcome to check out the Discord if you are interested. And yeah, so let's go to Beaks for now. We'll try and find some more dev streamers. So if anyone finds any new dev streamers that are streaming at the same time as I am, please let me know. I'd love the recommendation. But I will be back on Monday. Have a great rest of your day if I don't see you around on Twitch. One line, I'll be in your stream later. And Sorcery, I'll be in yours. I will see you all later. Take care all. Bye.